Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Kawaii Disney, a retrospective review of Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3. The Walt Disney Corporation has had its hand in video games since the 1980s, with games such as DuckTales, a personal childhood favorite, and others such as Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, The Lion King, and Aladdin. So hardly were they strangers to this form of media and how they could use it to push sales of their products. But for most of that time, they were working with Capcom. So when it was announced that Disney would be working with Square Enix on a new game that combined famous Disney characters and, of all things, Final Fantasy characters from across their history, it was met with no small amount of skepticism. Would it work? What kind of role-playing game would it be? Was the House of Mouse getting ready to overreach itself again and make a huge mistake? What in the hell would this game even be when it came out? Let's take a look at least the main entries of the Kingdom Hearts series and see if we can't answer those questions. I've recently spoken about the founding of Square Enix as an offshoot of an electric power corporation in Japan in the early 1980s. But the Walt Disney Company goes back much farther, starting in Burbank, California in 1923 by animator Walt Disney and his brother Roy Disney. Their first major hit was the 1928 cartoon Steamboat Willie, consequently the first appearance of the character of Mickey Mouse, and one of the first uses of sound and orchestration in an animated film. Now, as an aside, I at one time had my sights set on becoming an animator with the Walt Disney Company, not only from watching their cartoons like so many, but taking an interest in their actual method of animation and even investigating rumors in the pre-internet days of the so-called Disney Bible, a proprietary handbook issued to all new animators that explained not only the Disney method, but how to animate things such as mouths to mimic vowels and consonant sounds, or articulate better walk cycles of characters to give the appearance of a more lifelike flow to their animation. Unfortunately for me, by the time I was in college for art, Pixar Studios had become their default animation house, and Disney had, for reasons that make good business sense but break my heart as an illustrator, decided to stop using traditional hand-drawn cell animation and rely solely on computer animation, something I am not good at. Yet, even as a casual enjoyer of their animation, I have noticed 5 distinct periods or evolutions to their animation style during their nearly 100 years of existence. Don't worry, this will become relevant as we go along. But in brief, here's what I have noticed. First is the original era, the years from founding to pre-World War II. This was Walt's original animations with a very small team or done by himself in its entirety. Black and white, choppy, very rough, but it was great for the viewing public coming into theaters to see a black and white film. This is the years where Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and several others are born. But aside from Steamboat Willie, it is also known for other shorts, such as The Skeleton Dance or Silly Symphonies. Yet more of the Disney style becomes solidified in the mid-1930s when Walt, seeking bigger things for his studio and a way to teach his fledgling animators who seemed to be stuck doing only one type of drawing, Walt went out of his way to hire a studio out of work French animators to come to California and teach his animation team how to draw the French way, and the first result is the seminal classic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, released in 1937. Production slowed due to World War II, but picked back up once the Disney Bible had been compiled and more new animators were hired in the 1950s, with other fairy tale classics such as Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty on the way. All films we have seen at some point because Disney is an American institution, but all stemming from this French style. Yet by the 1960s and 1970s, a third style had come around, more thickly line-weighted at the edges of the characters, more prone to looking like charcoal and pastel drawings, more furry. This is your era of Fox and the Hound, 1001 Dalmatians, or 101 Dalmatians, excuse me, Sword and the Stone, or Robin Hood, where the whole cast was replaced by foxes and other animals, still using fairy tales or characters from historic fiction, but it was not Disney's most successful or profitable years. This comes at the end of 1989 with the release of The Little Mermaid, an absolute blockbuster by any film standard, and the start of what would be known as the Disney Renaissance, and its fourth period of animation style. Most notable for the heavily Japanese animation style that had been slowly creeping into the States by then, mainly due to other studios using their, at the time, cheap animation houses to create quick and shoddily done merchandise tie-in toys like the Transformers or Thundercats. Yes, I love those cartoons too, but they were just in truth there to help sell toy lines. So sorry if that upsets you. This fourth era would herald other Disney classics like The Lion King and Aladdin, and a huge return to daytime TV animation with their own Disney Channel, or licensing their cartoons out to Fox Television with DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, and a ton of others. Yet 70 years of hand-drawn animation history would see its death knell with the 1995 release of Toy Story, Disney's first fully computer-animated motion picture, and the beginning of what I have titled its fifth, and at the moment final evolution phase of animation style. For as much as that has evolved from its early days of Toy Story to something like Monsters, Inc. or Moana, it is still very much a certain style which is more like a lateral move than a leap forward. Why do I bring up their history and animation styles? Because the Kingdom Hearts series will, at least in its three mainline titles, heavily mine this history of animation, and later live-action blockbusters, and mimic their styles of drawing for those eras for reasons which I will explain. And if you want to do overly pretty, detail-heavy animations in a 3D computer animation space, at the time Square Enix was the biggest gorilla on the block, able to do just that. It didn't hurt that Disney had an in with them, as they had successfully run Disneyland Tokyo for decades, so the House of Mouse had successfully infiltrated the land of the rising sun for a long time. But in truth, if it wasn't for Disney, we wouldn't have a thriving manga and animation industry both at home in Japan and here in the United States. But that is an art history lesson for another time. Call it reciprocity, perhaps. And all Disney had to do was allow Square Enix to shoehorn in some of their best known characters as well. And boy, did they ever. I was as surprised as anyone when I found myself at my local Scranton GameStop, a copy of 2002's Kingdom Hearts in my hand, ready to be purchased. I had fallen out of love with Disney as a studio or a holder of entertainment properties some years before. But it was the Final Fantasy side of the equation that brought me out to buy a copy of this PlayStation 2 title. Let me say that again. This was a PlayStation 2 title. This is now, as the time of this recording, a 22-year-old game. Anyone else feeling particularly old yet? It was here that we are introduced to our hero protagonist, Sora, a brand new character, a young boy from a small island chain living a peaceful life with his friends Riku and Kairi. This is the first time directorial debut of Square character designer Tetsuya Nomura. So if you like your characters with huge belts, overly large zippers, and clown shoes, then this is the guy who has been responsible for it in Square Enix's stable of designers. Originally, that was the game's biggest point of derision among the gamers, TM. The character designer cum director responsible for some of the strangest and edgiest designs leading up to the early 2000s. Yet I found the designs charming in a weird way, so I was willing to run with it. The game begins in a dreamlike state, where Sora finds himself in the void, potentially deciding which of three playstyles to use: defense-based, aggression-based, or magic-based, which unlocks new skills and passive abilities throughout the action RPG at different paces or with different priorities, such as magic point growth faster under the magic path than unlocking new fighting skills under the aggression path. Once free to play, Sora must fight a dream battle against this massive inky shadow creature that will soon come to be known as a Heartless. So this is our first introduction to the game and world. Sora awakens on his island home, playing with his friends. But an incoming storm that night destroys the island and scatters his friends Riku and Kairi to the multiverse, and Sora awakens in Traverse Town, a sort of clearinghouse for Final Fantasy NPCs. Upon awakening, Sora meets Donald Duck and Goofy, some of Disney's best-known sidekicks to the famed Mickey Mouse, and in their guises as Chief Wizard and defending champion, allies to King Mickey. Sora has also found himself in the possession of a weapon known as the Keyblade, the most benevolent weapon in gaming history. Its whole job is to beat the utter snot out of the heartless, or beings who have lost their hearts to evil and darkness, but also to unlock the good in people and lock away the evil in the hearts of the villains. And it can be modified by special keychains as the game expands. This is the chosen position. So something about Sora has awakened within him to attract the attention of the Keyblade. King Mickey also has a Keyblade, and has gone on an adventure to find out why the Heartless are growing out of control. And Donald and Goofy need to find him. And as Sora is the Keyblade user, they hope the weapons will attract one another. This is also where we are beat over the head by Square's stable of characters, where in the first 15 minutes we'll meet new versions of Tidus, Wakka, Selphie, Squall, Aerith, Cid, and Yuffie from the Final Fantasy titles from 7 to 10, which had been released by this point. I'll be honest, dear listeners, there is no possible way I can do an exact breakdown of what happens across this game, so I'll be covering the extremely broad strokes from this point. Once given a rough idea of where Riku and Kairi might be, and with Donald and Goofy in tow, Sora gets in the Gummy Ship, perhaps the weakest part of this game, and uses this Lego brick ripoff to travel between a number of Disney worlds that are falling apart due to Heartless invasions. The Heartless mold themselves to fit into whatever setting they find themselves, so you'll be in for a treat as far as enemy and character designs. Those worlds are Alice in Wonderland, Tarzan for some reason. One assumes that they were pushing a movie that failed to do as well as the others. The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Winnie the Pooh, Hercules, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Peter Pan, Pinocchio, and Beauty and the Beast. Man, I can't wait to get tagged in some sort of Disney cease and desist order for naming all those properties. All these lands have clues as to what's happened to Riku, Kairi, and King Mickey, but it quickly becomes evident that something is desperately wrong, and that a stable of Disney villains led by Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty is seeking to destroy everything, and that Riku, also holding a dark and twisted Keyblade, is acting on her orders. Yet the real villain of this piece is the character called Ansem, who has possessed Riku, and is behind all of this. Some convoluted storytelling occurs, Sora loses the Keyblade, and is turned to a Heartless for a little while. Kairi is revealed that she is a person called the Princess of Heart, who is tied to unlocking the power of Kingdom Hearts, along with the Disney princesses from most of these worlds, and this Ansem needs to be defeated. Ansem finds the door to Kingdom Hearts at the end of the world, where all destroyed worlds find themselves, but opens it to find Light and King Mickey waiting for him. Mickey and Riku lock the door to Kingdom Hearts from their side, and with the help of Sora, Donald, and Goofy from that side, and thus save the multiverse and restore all destroyed worlds. The game ends when Sora and crew wander into the distance, talking about how they plan to find Mickey and Riku, and come back for Kairi when they can. Did you pick up on when I said convoluted storytelling? Well, strap in, folks, as convoluted storytelling is very much at the heart, the Kingdom Heart, if you will, of the series. I cannot possibly cover all these games in this series as I have not played all of them, but every single one ties in together, and my God, if confusion were legion, I'd have to drive this series into a herd of pigs to be drowned. I highly recommend you all check out Eric at the Unlockables podcast if you want a full breakdown of each game, if you haven't done so already, and how they connect. The man is doing Lord Nomura's work over there, and has helped fill in a lot of gaps for me and others. But let's move on to 2005's Kingdom Hearts 2. This is really where things begin to get very convoluted, a term I will use quite a lot. Unfortunately, if you haven't played all the games in a row in order, you will miss out on quite a bit, which is what happened to me. I missed a game that bridges Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 called Chain of Memories, in which Sora, Donald, and Goofy fell asleep for a year to recover their lost memories, a result of a trap laid for them by another Disney villain, after the credits rolled on the first Kingdom Hearts game. This sequel starts in a very different town, and the player is in control of a new teenager, one named Roxas. Roxas also has a Keyblade and different friends, and goes about his day doing odd jobs to get money to enjoy one last summer day with his friends, and some sea salt ice cream for a treat. On their way, they confront the bane of their worlds, the Nobodies, which are kind of the inverse of the Heartless. Upon defeating this monster, it is revealed that there are members out to get Roxas from a powerful group of nobodies named Organization 13, along with a girl named Naminé, who is a manipulator of memories, and a man in red named Dees, who will come back later in another form. Not long into the game, we lose Roxas altogether. As it turns out, he is linked somehow to Sora, and when Sora wakes, Roxas fades out of existence. In any case, the party is off again to find Riku and King Mickey and blah 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 about Kairi. But, as Final Fantasy is still involved here, we are introduced to new characters from other games. Vivi from 9, Auron from 10, Seifer from 8, Setzer from 6, and Cloud and Sephiroth from 7, who return in more speaking roles. We also visit new worlds in addition to the ones we saw in the last game. The Lion King, Pirates of the Caribbean, Mulan, and Tron, because fucking shit, we haven't seen Tron since the early 1980s. Sora, Donald, and Goofy continue on their roles as fighter, champion, and master mage, destroying Heartless and now the Nobodies as well. As each melds into the world they are invading. There is a new system introduced called the Drive System, which can turn Sora into something else entirely by combining him with either Donald or Goofy, or both, into some type of ultimate killer for a limited time. But as Riku is now a missing good guy, or at least anti-hero, the Disney stable needed a new lackey and brings in Pete, longtime nemesis of Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, and even sees him traveling all the way back to his Steamboat Willie days. And for a time, Maleficent is resurrected to cause more trouble. But along the way, Dees is revealed to be Ansem the Wise, the enemy of the first game, who mentored a character named Xehanort. But the actual final boss of the game is the leader of Organization 13, called Xemnas. Sora and crew will spend the game defeating most of the members of Organization 13, and this guy is the last target on the list. Yet to be able to do what they are doing in this game, and believe me, it's been a while since I played and a lot of details slipped my mind, Organization 13 has kidnapped Kairi and is holding her hostage to bring Sora and Riku out of hiding. Oh, here's a clue. The Nobodies have actual people that they are linked to, and their names are an anagram of the person's name plus the letter X. So the mysterious Roxas was Sora's nobody. See? Clear as mud. A lot of sci-fi fantasy bullshit later, and I mean that in a good way, Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and Riku find themselves at the very end of time and Kingdom Hearts at a place called the Castle That Never Was, where they must fight and defeat Xemnas, Ansem's nobody, in a light and sound spectacular of a fight that pushed my PlayStation 2 CRT TV and neural synapses to their limits back in 2005. Don't fight that final boss if you have epilepsy. Just a warning. But it all ends when a letter in a bottle from Kairi is the secret key to getting out of the realm of darkness that they are trapped in, and allows Sora and Riku to return to their home islands from the first game to be reunited with long-lost friends and other cast members. Yet in the post-credits scene, Sora, Riku, and Kairi get a letter of maximum importance from Mickey, which is hidden from the player. The name of the game in Kingdom Hearts 2 is Speed. Blinding speed, mass combat where hordes of enemies are thrown at the player to be destroyed in absolutely chaotic fights, and burying story thread after story thread under a combination of Square Enix and Disney magic. There is no strategy here, just mash and smash your way to victory. And I'm not gonna lie, it's fucking glorious. I don't care how lost in the plot I got, the spectacle is well worth it. And that's what this game is. Spectacle in the way one would expect of an overblown, overexpensive, and overly detailed theme park. It should and would be Walt Disney World, the video game. And it would be, if Adventures in the Magic Kingdom from 1990 didn't already exist. And this setup leads into not Kingdom Hearts 3, but a metric shit ton of side story games that I had to look up a wiki to follow. Games with titles like Dream Drop Distance and 358 by 2 Days, which sounds like a wild ass trip as any other game, but for this series fit in about as well as any other orphan name in this, again, convoluted series. But the last game I have touched on this series is Kingdom Hearts 3, the official third mainline entry. This 2019 entry, quite the gap in time since Kingdom Hearts 2, sees the return of a much older Sora, Riku, Donald and Goofy, along with Mickey, searching for the 7 Guardians of Light in order to stop the enemy Xehanart's quest to start a second Keyblade War, which, I'm sure, an honest, genuine thing. If you missed all the games in between and have not been keeping up, then God help you, because I know I can't. A number of the lands from the first 2 games return, but new ones reflecting the many years of Pixar studios that have been doing their animation work for Disney have also been added. So get ready to fight the Heartless, the Nobodies, and the new unversed enemies throughout the worlds of Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Frozen, Tangled, and Big Hero 6. The biggest addition Kingdom Hearts 3 adds in Sora's ultimate crush attacks, in which, when his rage gauge is full, he will unleash a screen-clearing attack where he will use the very Disney theme park rides found across all real-world Disney theme parks against the enemies. Examples such as Big Thunder Mountain Railroad or Mad Tea Party. We've now gone beyond action RPG spectacle by this point to surrealist capitalist utopia mindfuck. And I would not be surprised at all if Hunter S. Thompson himself popped up out of his acid trip soaked grave to begin journaling this whole experience. I'm not even going to begin naming the various names and characters introduced in this game by this point, as I don't even know who half of them are, other than that they are introduced in various games between Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3. But here's the basics. Sora, Donald, and Goofy have to continue their journey looking for the Guardians, but Organization 13 is back to kidnapping 7 princesses of power in place of Guardians, and are back to fucking up the various Disney worlds along the way. They must defeat the Organization members while Riku and Mickey, now their own team, run interference. But at some point, as everything is going bad on both sides, Xehanort chides Sora into a confrontation by dangling the threat of killing Kairi before him. And he technically destroys Kairi in the fight. But Sora uses his Keyblade powers to defeat Xehanort and revive Kairi, killing himself in the process. As the game ends, all the major players in this drama so far gather at their home islands of Sora, Riku, and Kairi to say goodbye to Sora and everyone, and await what will certainly be the next chapter in this series. In a post-credit scene, we see another member of Organization 13 named Zybar, but whose real name is Luxu. I think, anyway. And summons another fucking group known as the Foretellers, who will somehow be crucial in the next entries of this series, and will likely kick off this second Keyblade War anyway. I think. Look, it's very confusing, and I wasn't taking great notes at the end. But that is a lot of words, anyway, just for 3 games, and at current, there are a grand total of 19 games either released or announced to be released in the Kingdom Hearts series of games, on par with the Final Fantasy series and all of its offshoots. But all of them are absolutely necessary to tell the full scope of the story, and all of its ins and outs, minutiae and maximal evolutions and permutations. And whatever you may feel about that in particular, and I'm sure we as players who have even a passing knowledge of these titles have some sort of feelings on that, if is nothing else, it shows a certain level of dedication to, well, I'm not always sure quality, but certainly of excess that must in some way be respected. Nomura and his team are in this rabbit hole of series, and they are going to run it down no matter where it leads, and single-minded determination like that is hard to come by these days. But where do I find myself now, 17 years worth of Kingdom Hearts games later? Well, as I said, I'm long and away from Disney as a studio, property, or career aspiration. Yet I actually cannot help but love this beautiful mess of a game series. For as glitzy, schmaltzy, and sometimes empty headed as these games can be, and I said quality varies so long after the series that we have gotten, I never felt it was malicious or mean spirited. There is a genuine earnestness and charm about these games that transcends the more base and cynical elements of our gaming society and of our own hearts. Maybe because even the most cash grabbing of Disney properties still has some sort of positive emotion buried deep down beneath the filthy crust of C suite suits, overpriced cheeseburgers, multi hour wait times in the midst of oppressive summertime Florida humidity, and long dead Walt's own anti Semitism. And there is always going to be something in these games that will tickle your nostalgia bone. Maybe it is seeing a favorite Final Fantasy character realized into life in a period beyond what the pixel power of a previous generation of console could produce. Maybe it is getting to visit an expanded version of a favorite Disney world in a video game form. Certainly not all of them, but enough that you have had to at least seen one of them, if only by accident. Or maybe it's getting to do something wild and unexpected, like using summons the same way you would call in extraplanar help from the god entities like Ifrit or Bahamut in the Final Fantasy titles. But instead, it's any number of now classic characters Bambi to Tinkerbell, Genie to Mushu, hell, even Stitch and Wreck It Ralph, to wreak utter chaotic vengeance across a mass of monstrous heartless enemies who need to be put down so that the hearts and souls of others can be saved. Many of these brought a smile to my face and a nostalgic childhood tear to my eye. Maybe you actually liked making gummy ships, I don't know. But there is something here for everyone, every type of player, in its candy colored palette of worlds and characters. And it has, pardon the pun, heart. Nomura and Square Enix have taken that childlike wonder and made something out of it that transcends the properties of all involved. A creation that is in some way greater than the sum of its disparate parts. And who the fuck knows? Maybe Kingdom Hearts 4 will have you following Sora onto Tatooine to recruit an aged Luke Skywalker, or maybe help Amanda Ripley fend off the Alien Queen, or fight alongside Captain America and Thor for some kind of Avengers crossover. Look, Disney has been real busy in its high level property acquisition over the last decade, and for all I know, the next game could go in any number of directions. Everything is still on the table. As I have said, despite myself, and against more critical leanings of the play by play of the series and its shortcomings, I am kind of a low key Kingdom Hearts fan, at least of the mainline games. I certainly didn't think I'd like this crazed mishmash of shit, let alone still be playing them a decade later. It's comforting. It's damn silly. At times it makes no sense, subject only to its own dream logic and twisted plot lines that only the most dedicated fans can follow. It's sweet and oddly charming, in a corporate goulash, everything including the kitchen sink sort of way. It's a Frankenstein's monster of a property that has no right to be any good, let alone work. Yet it has and does. Does it have its detractors? Of course it does. But who doesn't like to take the piss out of something wholesome, especially if it offends the sensibilities of said piss takers? Does it deserve it? Perhaps it does, but I hardly care. Kingdom Hearts, at least as far as the three main titles are concerned, is worth it to try and have fun with, even if you just go along for the ride of seeing what Disney properties the developers will take you to next, and to hell with the overall plot. And above all, these games are far more Final Fantasy than whatever the hell Square Enix has been shitting out as Final Fantasy titles of late. Look, I'm sure Clive Rossfeld looks great fighting in Tekken 8, but I don't know, man. I feel more connected to this period of Square's games. Call me old-fashioned, I suppose. Thank you for listening. Deleted Saves would like to thank Brad, Keith Gasper, Orden Wells, and Mass Lama for being patrons of the show. If you would like to become a patron of the show, please go to patreon.com and check out Deleted Saves podcast. All donations go directly towards maintaining the show itself. Thank you.